Hey guys, it's Ebony Ivory, and we are here with another great episode of Conversations with a Fly Aunt. Today I have a fly guest, and I'm going to go ahead and allow her to introduce herself. Introduce yourself to the people.
Hi everyone, my name is SaNyah. I'm a registered nurse, BSN RN. I have two specialties. I primarily work in the ICU and I also work in psych.
All right, we got a little psych nurse in the house, BSN RN. Let's respect the letters.
Okay?
Put some respect on her name.
Put them in caps too.
All right, so you may be looking at us and like, oh, she just looks so young and she's a BSN RN. She is.
Period.
And she's also my oldest daughter, and I'm super proud of her.
Thank you.
I'm so happy to have her on the
I'm
podcast.
excited to be here. Happy.
All right. Good. We.
No French.
All right. So let's get into, we like to play a little game. You all know I love games. So we're going to get into eat, vibe, and rejuvenate. So as mentioned, she is a nurse. So I want to know what it is that you like to eat, SaNyah. Now, it could be something that I cook, wink, or just in general, what is your go-to meal? You know, you do the little greedy dance, the shimmy, like, oh yeah, I'm finna tear this up.
Honestly, my go-to meal is Chipotle.
What?
It's my comfort food. I don't know what it is. I know I like when you cook too, but it's just I can get Chipotle at any hour. You're not an open kitchen.
Wah, wah, wah. Okay. Chipotle wins. Cut the check, Chipotle.
They should sponsor me.
All right. And then vibe. When you get in your GT,
Line. Yeah.
what is your song of choice? And we want the artist and we want the song.
Okay, so right now my favorite song of choice is Sunday Service by Lotto. I just really like that song, especially when she's like 20 black trucks. Like I feel like I'm in an Escalade, like driving down the 20 in my 20 black trucks like it's Sunday Service. So that's my favorite song right now. That's my go-to vibe song right now.
Okay, all right, Lotto in the house, big Lotto, okay.
Okay.
And to rejuvenate, because you're a psych nurse and an ICU nurse.
Yes.
And both, being a nurse, any nurse in itself is a big job and a heavy responsibility.
Definitely.
But working in an intensive care unit and working in a psych hospital, what do you do to rejuvenate?
Honestly, sounds really simple, but my favorite thing to do to rejuvenate is just to take a shower, like a really hot shower. Like, it just feels good. I feel like, okay, I'm back at home. I'm not at work anymore. Like, a shower just truly, like, relaxes me. So that's my rejuvenation. It's very simple, but it takes me right back to ground zero instead of being at 100.
Do you put anything extra in the shower? Like,
yes, I do. So, courtesy of the fly aunt, my mother, she introduced me to the shower steamers that they sell at Bath and Body Works. So, when I go to Bath and Body Works, I'll get like 2 different scents, and I'll choose a shower steamer to use when I get off work.
okay.
And I'll pop it in there, and it feels great.
Okay, awesome.
Hot
All
shower
right.
smells good.
So that was eat, vibe, and rejuvenate. And we're going to get into the conversation. All right. So
Let's talk about it.
today's topic may be a little heavy for some, but you know, here we like to broach those uncomfortable conversations and we want to give it light so that it makes it easier for you to discuss. So as mentioned, SaNyah is a ICU nurse as well. So being an ICU nurse, she often comes home and we discuss things. So this particular morning, she walks in and she's discussing her last wishes.
What?
And I'm like, huh?
You were definitely taken aback. You were shocked because I just laid it on you.
So explain to the people how you approached your mother 7 o'clock in the morning, fresh off your shift with your last wishes?
So I basically came home fresh off of work. And usually after I get off of any shift, the first thing I do is I take my shoes off and then I go and I talk to my mom, just like regroup, tell her how work was, like just update her on like just how I'm feeling and like how the night went. And so this particular night, I just came home and I was just thinking about like work and like, you know, my patients and like how their family is coping. And I just let her know, like, look, like if something happens to me, like I'm okay with this, but I'm not okay with this. Like, and I'm going to write it down, but I want you to know out of my mouth how I would like to proceed going forward if I was incapacitated and I was in a space where I wasn't able to state my wishes to the healthcare professionals that's taking care of me.
Let's be clear. She wasn't that politically correct when she came in to have this conversation with me. She literally told me if I didn't follow her directions, she would haunt me.
I would. I mean that wholeheartedly. I will haunt her because all you have to do is listen. How hard is it to listen? See
Okay, guys. So let's talk about it. So if you couldn't tell already, we're going to talk about last wishes. So we're going to provide you with a couple of ways to broach the topic. So let's start here. I think it's really important to have these things in place. So if something happens, nobody is ever really prepared for someone to go into a hospital and may or may not come back out. But there's certain levels to care when you do go and you face these situations where it will arise that your last wishes should be heard and should be imposed. So, Naya, if you can just tell us, okay, what type of scenario, we speak about, you tell me information about the ventilator, you give me information about, being trached. So kind of tell me at what level of care things could be and, why this is important.
Okay, so really the first initial level of care that's most important is your code status. So your code status is basically if you were to lose a pulse, like your heart stopped beating on its own, or if you were compromised respiratorily, like if you just weren't able to breathe on your own or you had a really hard time breathing, you can either be a full code, DNR, or DNI. So a full code is when they do CPR and they push medication to just basically bring you back to life and stabilize you. DNR is do not resuscitate, and that basically means where they will push medication, but nobody will actually do compressions or physically touch you to try to bring you back. DNI is do not intubate. So do not intubate or full code goes into the whole ventilator or being trached. So do not intubate is when if you're compromised respiratory wise, they will put essentially in layman terms a tube down your throat in order to bring you back, and the ventilator provides breaths for you so your lungs get a chance to rest. So do not intubate is basically saying that you refuse to be on the ventilator. But if you're a full code, that means that you're willing to be intubated and you're willing to get CPR. So the code status is really the most important because that's how we decide, okay, if you're in this space where you're not doing well or you're slowly decompensating, it gives the healthcare professionals kind of like a guideline to how we're going to treat you going forward. Some people, they want to like pass peacefully. They don't want a tube down their throat. They're not okay with that. Some people don't want to have compressions because one of the most important things about compressions is that your ribs can break. And most times when you are doing CPR and if you're giving good compressions, you're going to crack a few ribs.
All right. Well, thank you so much for giving us that full on breakdown. No pun intended. So, all right. So now that we have DNR, DNI, and code.
Full code.
Full code. Okay. Come on, baby girl, correct me.
Get it together.
You got the degree, since you know everything. All right. So since we have all of those three separate things broken down, tell us how they should have their wishes set. Like, should it be on paper? Should, a friend be able to tell, the medical professional, this is what they want? Like, how should they go about making sure that their last wishes in regards to care are met?
So I suggest, and I push for this the most, is that should be written down. It should be on paper. Like, it should be signed. If you feel like it's necessary just to do a Word document, if you want to go to a lawyer and do a living will, it's most important that it's on paper. Because just like how me and you had the conversation, you could say, oh, well, she wants this, even though that I told you something different. Or when I'm in that space, you decide, well, no, I want to keep her. I want to save her. And you go against my wishes. So I feel like it's really most important to write it down on paper. If you're not married, 9 times out of 10, your first point of contact would be like your mother, your father, whoever is closest to you, whether like if you don't have any living parents, it would be one of your children, preferably usually the eldest child. If you are married, your medical decision proxy or your point of contact would be your husband or your wife. So it's very important to make sure that you have those conversations with the person that you already know is going to be your point of contact. So that's a good guise, because when you are in that space where you're incapacitated, if you are already intubated or if they already did CPR on you, and the higher ups like your doctor, your PAs, your nurse practitioners, when they come to have that conversation with you, the person that they're usually initially going to go to is either husband, wife, first parent, or it's going to be first eldest child, the person that's closest to you. So I think it's important to have those conversations along with writing it down, like making sure it's signed, making sure that you have it uploaded somewhere, whether it's in your My Chart, keeping it somewhere close in your purse, in your bag, somewhere where someone can actually see it or they can have access to it.
Oh, now they got to walk around with it in their
Walk
purse.
around with it like how you walk around with them $100 bills. Bring it with you. Bring it with you.
Coins, cha-ching.
Okay, bring it with you.
So, all right. So now that we have the top 3 reasons, we should put it should always be on paper. So now you as a nurse, when these decisions come to play, tell us about some of the emotions of it all that you witnessed from other families.
So usually when it's in this space, family, they are usually extremely emotional. And like most people know, whether it's in a situation like this or just in your regular day-to-day life, emotions cloud your judgment. Naturally, like it's not like they intentionally do it, but they're very emotional, and their first natural instinct is, no, this is my family member, I love them, save them, do everything that you can for them. So usually they're super emotional. Thankfully, we have the doctors and the PAs and the nurse practitioners who have gone through that education, so they know like how to guide through those conversations and have those conversations with family members, even though they may not be emotional. And they do a really good job explaining to them, this is what's going to happen if you make this decision. But the best part about it is that they're not too pushy. So while the family is in like that emotional state, they're not pushing for you to do things a certain way. Like you still have, that autonomy to make the decision of what you want. But the goal is always, if that patient is awake, if they're oriented, if they know what's going on, as soon as they get in the hospital, you ask that question, what do you want? Because you never know when you're going to go to the hospital. You never know what's going to happen. Like you can go into the hospital for one thing and then it turns into a rolling spiral of other things. So it's important, like once I know this person, they can speak, like they're aware of what's going on. Let me just ask you right now, what is it that you want, just in case something happens.
Okay, so the next part we're going to go into is how we're going to broach this topic. Me, as I've explained, my mother is of Jamaican descent. Mm-hmm. No, she's a Jamaican, period. I'm of Jamaican descent.
Yeah, she's a Jamaican.
But broaching that topic with her, trying to discuss her last wishes is not easy at all. So, I've gone to my mother and I'm like, what do you want to, if this is the case? Talk about that. Here you come with this foolishness. Just nobody me with it. So, SaNyah.
Yes.
how would you broach the topic with your grandmother? Say you going to talk to your grandmother, how would you broach the topic? Because we all know the love for grandchildren is really different.
It's just a little different.
It's just a little different. Like what I would receive, she won't give that to SaNyah. So how are you gonna broach this topic? Because I'm putting it on you to have this conversation with your grandma. Because when I try to do it,
it doesn't work.
It's not working.
Okay, so the funny thing is I was actually just thinking about that. Like, okay, I probably need to have a conversation with her too soon about what she wants because she is older. But I think honestly, it would be a little bit easier for me to approach the topic with my grandmother because she did major in nursing, so she is very educated and well-rounded when it comes to like the healthcare field. But my grandma, as much as I love her, she is a little bit rough around the edges.
So how are you going to broach the conversation with her?
I would just, I'd probably tell her like, oh, grandma, like, I just got off work and I just saw this. And, like I probably would give her like a little very light example of what I experienced. And then I'd say, oh, if this happened to you, like, what would you want? Like, sometimes you have to, smooth the edges, the rough edges, you got to smooth around it. But I'd just give her an example, but I'd ask her like, so if something happened to you, what would you want to do? Like, based on your quality of life, what would you prefer? Would you prefer for us to just let you go? Or would you just be okay with us, doing everything to just keep you here?
Okay.
I'd ask.
I think that's a really good direct approach, is just providing two options, basically. You want us to go balls to the wall and fight for you, or are you comfortable with us just letting you go? I think that is a really good approach to take with her. It does not give, or anybody for that matter, it doesn't give people too much wiggle room. But I do want us to kind of explore a different option, because I know, of course, everything, when it comes to something happening to our health, everything can't be this or that.
Yeah.
So what's another level? Because when you discussed your last wishes with me, you opened up about if you were on something, was it the ventilator?
Yeah, if I was on a ventilator.
Okay, so let's talk about that. So you expressed to us about the ventilator. So just talk a little bit about what your wishes concerning that.
So my wishes, I was very specific about my wishes concerning the ventilator because I do work, majority of my patients are ventilated and they are on ventilators. So I am very specific about what I want. So there's two ways you can be on a ventilator, either endotracheal, which is the tube going directly through your mouth and down your throat to your lungs, or just tracheal, which is just through your neck and then down through your lungs. So when you initially get intubated, they do it, through your, basically put the tube down your throat. And I explained to my mom that I'm okay with the tube just being down my throat. But the catch-22, which is the tube being down your throat, is they do trials where they try to take the tube out. They see if you can tolerate it, if you can breathe on your own, and you get 14 days. So you get 2 weeks on these trials. So if you're unable to come off of the ventilator within these 2 weeks, they talk to your family, and there's either going to be two options. Either they're going to trach you, which is they're going to take the tube from out of your throat, and then they're going to create an incision in your neck, and then they're going to put a new tube down just directly through your neck. Or they're going to make you comfort care, which is basically they will take the tube out of your throat and they'll see if you tolerate on your own. But most times when you are comfort care, usually that patient does pass away. So I basically expressed to my mom that I'm okay with the tube just being down my throat, but if I do get to that point, to that 14-day mark, and I'm unable to breathe on my own, it's called extubating. So you have the intubation, which is when they put it down your throat, and the extubation is when they take it out. So if I'm unable to be extubated, make me comfort care. I don't want a incision in the middle of my neck. I don't want to have to go through the trials of having like a collar or a speaking valve. Like me, I'm not comfortable with that. I don't want that for myself.
So my question to her when she was saying that was, how are you gonna know if I decide to, move forward and get you trached? Like how are you gonna know?
And that was such a crazy question because basically within that question, she's saying like, I'm keeping you. Like that's all I got out of that was like, if you're not gonna know, then you're gonna stay. But So I explained to her, by that time that you get closer to your 14-day mark, they take you off of sedation. So there are sedative medications that can keep you comfortable while you're intubated. But when they keep doing these trials, they take you off of that sedative medication. So if I'm neurologically aware of what's going on, I'm off of the sedative medication and I can see, and I'm very well aware. And what a lot of people don't know is that your hearing is the last to go. So most of the times the patients can't hear what you're saying when you're in the room or if you're talking about things. So I may not be able to move around, God forbid, but I can hear what's going on. But I also explained to her that a big part of it is that your neurological status. So like, are you aware? Can you open your eyes on your own? Like if I touch you, like do I respond? If I pinch you, am I like taking my arm back? Like if you shake me, do I open my eyes? If you ask me, hey, can you move your toes? Wiggle your toes. Do I wiggle my toes on command? So there's a chance that if I'm not neurologically stable, I don't want to be trached because at that point, I can't do anything on my own.
Okay, so let's give another scenario so
Okay.
people know, right? Because that's what this conversation is about. If your wishes are not respected, right?
Mm-hmm.
What happens next? What's the next step? Because it's very emotional. We're in a hospital. You're in ICU. I don't know your wishes. I'm doing, like, for example, I don't know your wishes, or your wishes aren't respected, right? The next step is for them to put the trach through your throat, right?
Yes.
Okay. And then what's next after that?
So you don't know my wishes. I'm still a full code. So that means you guys are still doing everything to just keep me alive and keep me well. So once you get to that point where you do have the trach down your throat, either one of two things happen. Either you go to a nursing home where certain nursing homes can take care of people who are trached, or you go to LTAC. And LTAC stands for long-term acute care. So if you do have a trach, you are technically an acute patient. So, but it's long-term. So you're going to have a chronic trach until, you're able to possibly breathe on your own. So that would be the next step. And in order to get accepted into a LTAC or a long-term acute care facility, you have to fail 3 spontaneous breathing trials. So your spontaneous breathing trial is when they put the ventilator on standby and they see, like, are you breathing on your own? Are you able to, like, do it on your own? And once you fail 3, then you get accepted into a LTAC facility and you get transferred there, and then they can take care of you.
Okay. And you go to this LTAC, this facility, because people cannot take care of you at home with a trach.
Yes.
Correct, right?
Yes.
You have to be under supervised care.
Yes.
For that.
Yeah, you can't go home with the ventilator. Like, you can go home with, like, a trach collar or, like, a valve over it.
Okay.
But you can't go home with the actual ventilator. But when you go to a LTAC facility, there's skilled nurses and skilled professionals that can take care of you while you have a trach until they're able to possibly wean you off, or that's just that becomes your new home.
That becomes your new home.
Yeah, that becomes your new home.
Okay, this was like super, super informative. I'm glad that we got to discuss it. I hope it wasn't too heavy, but I think it is important that us as a community, we definitely have to have these discussions, because so much turmoil in the family dynamic comes from when illness strikes.
Yes.
When people go ill, emotions are at its peak.
Yes.
And you see a side of people that you've never seen before. And guess what? A lot of this can be avoided if the wishes are already known to those. So in addition to having a medical POA, let's not wait to discuss this with anybody. And also, the people that you discuss it with should also be the people that you know are going to show up for you in the hospital.
Yes.
You don't want to run the risk of having your wishes known by somebody that's out of the country or states away, because how are they going to help you enforce your wishes if they're not standing right there when the event, first occurs? So let people know that will show up for you. But most importantly, let's have it documented, signed, sealed. I'm not sure if a notarization is good enough, if you have to have a court file document, but make sure you have this in order so that your wishes are the wishes that are being carried out.
Definitely.
Because ultimately a health professional, they want to respect your wishes and they want to provide you the best care. So let's make sure we get a medical POA. Let's make sure we broach the topics with our loved ones, no matter how bullheaded or stubborn they are. Let's get the topics. If you got to stroke their ego, got to take them out to a meal, let's have
do whatever you got to do.
Do what you have to do to have this conversation. It is not comfortable. It is indeed an uncomfortable conversation. But once you have it, ultimately, you don't have to have it again unless that person brings it up because it's a change.
Yeah.
So let's get it done. Let's one and done. So medical POA, don't wait to discuss it. And let's make sure whoever you're discussing your last wishes with, they are people that can show up for you and stand in that gap. So we are going to bring this episode to a close. I'm so happy that my daughter was able to be the one to provide this information. I know it's a little bit more informative than usual, but still it's a conversation that we need to have.
It's really important, and not just people that will show up for you, people that you can trust, because sometimes it's people that show up, but they're not people that you're necessarily close to. And usually when it's hard to find. If I can't find that husband, that wife, you're going down the line of people that you can find. So you want people that like you trust them and that they respect you, because that's the most important part.
That's true. That's a great point.
And not only that, I think it's also important to know that they have people around them, that these are not people that are easily influenced. Because I've seen a lot of times where people do respect that patient's wishes, but they also, that person, let's say that daughter has a husband, and that daughter is easily wavered and influenced by that husband and what his opinions are. So now that's changing what she wants to decide to do for her mother, because she's being influenced by, outside noise. So it's like you need to make sure that you're around people who can also drown out that noise and just be able to say, okay, this is my mother, this is my family member. Sometimes it's even my friend, because some people don't have family.
Right.
So somebody that I know that this person will respect me. No matter what happens to me, I know that they will make sure I'm okay, because it's been some cases where people, they're actually a DNR, but you didn't know, and then you bring them back and they're upset.
Oh, okay.
They're mad.
They're mad.
Because I didn't want to come back.
Okay.
They did not want to come back. They were ready to go with the Lord. And now that they're back here with us. So it's still really important to make sure that you have people around that know this, and make sure that this is not information that you're just keeping to yourself. Like even your past medical history or things that you've experienced, make sure that that's not information that you're keeping to yourself. And if you're not writing these things down, that you're telling somebody so people know. Because it's really important, because when you get in that hospital bed, and sometimes if you're in that room by yourself or you're intubated, because not only can you get intubated in the hospital, paramedics and EMS can intubate you at home when they come on the scene and they see that you that you're in respiratory distress. They can intubate you and they can bring you to the hospital. So at that point, if they intubate you,
you can't talk.
You can't talk.
So that's why it's important to have your medical POA. It's important to have your wishes written down, and it's important to have that information accessible. She provided a great tip. Is there a way to actually upload that to MyChart?
I believe so. When we do admissions, it does say that you can have, if they have an advanced directive, if there's a copy of it in the chart, or if they verbalize it to, the PA or the doctor. So I do believe that there is a way that you can upload that somewhere or have it documented somewhere. But it's important that you at least start the process, because you never know. Life comes at you quick.
It does. It definitely does. So with that being said, life comes at you quick. Let's get our last wishes in order. And just a little tip, get a life insurance policy, please.
That is so important, because still you never know. And it's very expensive to bury somebody.
That's all we gonna do today. That's all we're gonna give you today. I want to thank you guys for speaking and thank you for taking the time to speak with me. I want to let you know that I'm uber proud of you.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure being your mother.
Has it?
It really has.
I hope so.
You know, a lot of people refer to their little ones as their mini me, but I lovingly refer to you as my better me.
I could shut up a tear if I didn't have one last year.
Well, I want to go ahead. I want to close out the episode. I want you guys to let me know if you'll broach this topic or have you had to have this conversation with somebody already. How did it go? Let me know in the comment section what you think. Also on my on the podcasting platforms, please make sure you're following the page, leaving a review, answering a poll, and showing some love. I would love to engage with you. So make sure you follow me, The Fly, on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. And if you want the people to follow you, let them know where they can find you, Nurse SaNyah.
You can find me on Instagram at zam.ny, ZAMN.NYY.
All right, so that is going to close out the episode. Thank you so much for spending time with us. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Spirit fingers. We love spirit fingers over here.
We do.